have learned culture and language, how culture influences language, and how language influences culture. So we have already noted a point like both are inseparable. So you cannot separate language from culture, and you cannot separate culture from language. Both go hand in hand and they are interdependent. So language influences culture. And as well, what is linguistic universal? So we know, for example, you think whenever I wonder if you imagine how languages change. I mean, how language is different from each other, but still they have some common features. For example, if I say you take any language, grammar is compulsory. And you take any language, vowels, consonants, I mean the script, okay, the written form of symbols. The alphabet is called symbols. They are also common. And you see, there are elements like vocabulary, structure, I mean the structure of language, how morphemes, that is the basic sound units, how we speak, how we express. Okay, these are all we have in common. So they are nothing but linguistic universal. So what is universal? Universal is that you get them universally. That means you have all these things everywhere. That is linguistic universal. So the differences between languages are many. There are many to pen down. The pronunciation of each word differs from one language to another. The word order also differs. Examples, the verb comes last in the Japanese sentence, first in the Arabic sentence. And in English and Hindi and Telugu, you observe. For example, if I say, Rama ate an apple. Rama, noun comes first. Ate. Ate comes next. That is a verb. Okay. And if you put it in Hindi, the sentence order may difference. If you put it in, if you translate that in Telugu, that is also the order changes. So there are many irrespective of the differences also, there are some common elements are there. In spite of all the differences, however, languages still have a lot in common. So according to language hierarchy, there are following types of universal. Hierarchy is nothing but going from top to down. Phonic differences. All languages have vowels and consonants. These are universals. That means, what are the common features of all languages? What do you have common among all languages? In most languages, words are structured into morphemes. Morphemes are basic sound units. Sound units, and please don't write on the whiteboard. Don't use whiteboard. Otherwise, I have to control everything. Then you will not be having any options, please. Morphemes function as full and auxiliary elements. These are called lexical. I think if you can take a snapshot of this slide, hope this is brief and very clear to you, so that you can prepare for your exam. Morphemes function as full and auxiliary elements. They are called lexical. Okay. In all languages, vocabulary is a system of semantic fields. In all languages, there is polysemy, synonymy, antonymy, and syntactic. So in all languages, there is a distribution of subject, verb, object. So you can forget about this semantic and syntax because you are not studying now. Okay. So you can just remember there are common features. What are the common features of languages? Grammar is common. Vocabulary is common. Okay. That is, every language has their own phonic sounds and morphemes. For example, in Telugu language, you take 56 alphabets are there. Okay. And among them, you have both vowels and consonants. In English, you have 26 alphabets and 5 vowel letters, symbols. But sounds, but sounds, 44 vowel sounds are there in English language. So like that, you have common features between languages. Here, take a photo. Okay. So there is a theory that in your textbook it is given. So there is a theory which is called Berlin and Kay, which is propounded by these two persons. And that theory is called basic color terms. So you remember, you try to understand very clearly that even colors, symbols are also part of our culture. For example, you take North Indian, they give importance to red. So red is a symbolic culture for auspicious things. For example, take marriage. They wear red color saree, and even all the decorations. So the red is auspicious for them. And for us, you take yellow, okay, and red. You usually use these colors, and they are also auspicious for Telugu people. So here, so colors, each and every term and every color, the importance you give to colors, they're also part of our culture. They represent our culture. They analyze the people's attitude or mentality or the way you practice the things. It also represents. So based on that, a study was done, and so these two people, they propounded a theory. They formed a theory that if any culture, you take any culture, and if they don't know any colors except white and black, that means in that particular culture, you have only two color names. What? White and black. Okay, so if a culture has two colors, only two colors, that should be white and black. So it cannot be red or green. If any culture, they know only two colors, they should be white and black. And what is the second principle? So if any culture knew only three colors, then they will be having red, white, and black. If they are having three, along with white and black, that should be red. And if they are having five colors, so there should be white, black, red, green, and yellow. So like that, so they have come to a decision that if any culture knew all the colors names, the seventh one, so obviously along with all these, they also have purple, pink, orange, and gray also. So okay, yeah.
Here, culture means it is regarding language. Like in English, we have all the colors. We have name for every color.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, is there any language, if we take China or Chinese language, there also, they have the name for every color?
Yes. See, it is not just what we are talking about is like, Chinese or English or America. It is not that way. Yes, of course, definitely. Language is also an aspect, but you should take consideration. You should take into consideration about all the tribes, okay, remote people, and it is not just the study of present time. You should take the study or of the existed. That means once upon a time, some groups existed, isn't it? So they have studied also them. That is every culture. It is not just today what you observe. It is not the theory. Okay, so they knew almost all colors. Of course, we too today,
Yes.
we have so many, because we have
Yes,
computer and they are blending all the colors, and we have even we today you are going go to a stationery shop, you will find many colors, 50
yes,
colors,
ma'am.
54 colors, all that. But earlier it wasn't. You take Indus Valley civilization, how many colors they knew? Only 3 colors, right? So they didn't
Yes.
knew this green and yellow. And later, after that Indus Valley civilization, you have only this blue And after white and black, they have blue. And when they have invented this blue, even their joy knew no bound because they have invented it. And that color they used to export. They used to export this blue color to, that chemical or that, that
Yes.
material to other parts of the world also. So you should take in consideration into all the civilizations, okay, cultures.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, good. So now, and there is an argument of the negative side of argument is also there to this theory, Berlin and Kay. So these people, what they have propounded is, if they knew only two names, so there should be all this. That means the psychological aspect of the people and their culture, how they behave, all that. But there is a this theory has faced many challenges. So, for example, this example is given in your textbook. That's why I have taken this example. So, this Bini, this is a tribe. You see the face of this person. These are Bini, the tribe. And these, you observe the colors. So, here they have very few colors, white and orange and light brown colors they have. So it was it is a tribe of West Africa, and there is a scarcity in their words for color. That means if they have no name, say for example purple, so they don't know purple. They don't know purple color. So they don't use purple color. And you take the reverse also. Because they don't have the purple color with the availability of purple color with them, so they don't use that color, and they don't know what is the name of that color also. Got it? If they have the name, they use it. If they use it, they have the name. Okay. So if this theory is like that, which is reflected in their costumes. So that means they have very, very few colors. They use only white and very, very basic colors they use. Buildings, paintings, and even the colors of the houses also, it is very, very, very less. Okay. So yet they have wide range of words for sound, shape, and movement, which is seen music, sculpture, dance, etc. Yet they have wide range of words for sound. So they knew many sounds. They knew many sounds, and they knew many shapes and movement. That means whenever they are dancing, there is a movement. That means they have very, very advanced kind of bodily movements in dance, which is visible in sculpture, dance, etc. Okay. So here it is saying that if, whenever it is a part of culture, obviously it will reflect in the language. It will reflect in the language. For example, today also, just now, some student asked me, there are many colors in Chinese and that also. Yes, good. For example, you go to, for example, okay, Kathmandu, Nepal. Okay, you go to Nepal and you consider their architecture. Wherever you go, Kathmandu is the capital city of Nepal. Wherever you go, you will observe only brick walls. There were no paintings. There are still today also, there will be no paintings for the homes. They don't slab, okay, and they don't apply colors. Simply they will use that, they leave the, structures, walls as they are. They don't do anything. They don't decorate their houses. They don't decorate their houses. Okay, today we are using internet and they knew many colors, isn't it? They knew many colors, but they don't color their homes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So what is that? They knew the colors. They knew the colors, but it is not reflected in their culture. So when they, even though they have names today, but they don't reflect. That means that they are not part of the culture. So these are the variations. These are the variations. Who is that making sound? Please check, mute yourselves, please. So Mark Bornstein's view. He states that the physics of color, the psychophysics of color discrimination, and the psychology of color naming are not isomorphic. So now, based on this example, or maybe any more examples, this Mark Bornstein's view, he propounded, he stated this statement. What is that? So he states that the psychic physics of color, that means how you prepare the color, okay, and how you use the color, and what you have to mix in order to get that color, chemical composition, where do you get that color, all these things, that is physics of color. And psychophysics of color discrimination. Psychophysics of color discrimination is nothing but the ability to distinguish or discriminate. That means the ability to identify the color. That is called psychophysics of color discrimination. And the psychology of color naming. Psychology of color naming. Maybe you show the color. You go to any kindergarten, that is, LKG or UKG, you go and ask them, pick me up red color. So one person, one may select, one kid may select red, one kid may select orange. And some kids, so they may pick up the colors which are nearer to, I mean, there are 4 shades between red and brick red. So they may pick up all the colors, and they may give you all the names also, even though we don't know. So the psychology of color naming are not isomorphic. Is they're not identical. They are not identical. They are different. That means it changes from person to person. It changes from people to people. That is group to group, or maybe a region to region. Just now we have seen the Kathmandu experience. Okay, so even though they knew all colors, they don't use it. It is not that they cannot identify. They can identify, but they don't use it. So all these are different. They may vary from person to person. That is his theory. So color perception is a biological process, and color naming is a linguistic one. So these two are different. Color perception is a biological process. So when if we both are watching, I am also teaching and you are listening, I can say this is green, this is red, and this is color. Even though you don't know that name, but you can really identify the color. You can distinguish the colors. Maybe you don't know name, that's it. But you can distinguish. That is a biological process, because we have eyes. All eyes are able to see all colors. Okay, except in the cases of color blindness, all people, rest of the people can watch the colors as it is, even though they know the names or they don't know the names. In spite of having the same perception, some language have color names in them, in their language, and some colors they don't have names, but they can distinguish the colors. And the next one is cultural encoding. So what is this cultural encoding? So Clary Cramps says that culture becomes part of the language we use. Please don't use whiteboard. So he says that becomes part of the language we use. Stall, and coffee table is a stolic. So what is this is that you can say is, for example, if I say a word, you may take that word into another meaning based on your culture, based on your exposure. I may take that word, I may imagine, that is, what we have learned in the last class, denotation and connotation. If I say please, if I say mean, MEAN, mean. What do you mean? What do you understand by the term mean? Can you tell me?
Means it is very cunning and they do for their favor only.
Mean, MEAN, mean. That is your meaning. Okay, good.
Very low.
Very low, good. And good, wonderful. If I say your answer script is mean, your answer script is mean, what do you mean by that? Yeah, good. Any answers? If I say your answer scripts are very mean,
that means it is up to the point. It is having very meaningful way.
Okay, and any other meaning?
Madam. To refer particular thing.
Good. Okay. Okay. So once what happened, a professor in Australia, this incident actually happened. So professor asked his students to write an assignment on a given topic, and all of the students have submitted their answer scripts. So some values, next day the professor returned all of the scripts, and there were comments written on it. But one script was left alone without putting even a pen on it. So the student was got confused, and he immediately rushed to the professor and asked, "So, sir, why didn't you didn't correct my script?" Then he said no. Then the student asked, even though if it is a positive or negative, if it is good or bad, at least try to, you could have given a comment like it is good or bad, isn't it? If it is not good, if it is not sufficient, if it is not up to the mark, at least you could have given the comments also. But he didn't write anything, and the student is baffled, I mean confused. Then the professor said, it is very mean to give any comment. It is very mean to give any comment. That means even I cannot write negative comments also. That means the script is not worthy of having a negative criticism also. That means I don't want to put my pen on your answer script, right? That means it is not eligible. It doesn't have a criteria. It doesn't have a eligibility. Okay, you got it? So that is mean. So now you observe the different perspectives, our ideas, our perceptions, just a single word mean. It is called cultural encoding based on our experiences, based on our culture. And suppose you go to any table, reading table and the dining table and tea table, all these things are happening. All these words, in English, if you say table, they mean anything. It could be a dining table, it could be a tea table, but that is just only a table for them. For English language, you can say table, that's it. Put this on my table, that's it. But if you go to any Polish language, they have a distinction. They have distinction. You cannot say a stole as a stolic and a stolic as stole. Dining table is stole and coffee table is stolic. We use teapoy. That means where you keep teacups. That is teapoy. But now all the shopping malls have come. That word teapoy has erased. It is not completely erased. It almost disappeared. You go everywhere, it is called tea table. You go any furniture shop, you see a notation tea table. Earlier, it was in India, it was a teapoy, like that. So it has some cultural denotations based on our cultural assumptions. So you cannot address all the tables as table. But you can, if you say table, any kind of table, they don't mind. Only is whether you are able to communicate or not. That's it. That is important for one culture. But for one more culture, no. It is not just to convey or the communication. The word you use, the phrase you use, everything also counts. So this is a cultural encoding. How you understand any message is important. It depends on the cultural background. So semantic cohesion. Semantic cohesion is nothing but the meaning of a word depends on the each culture. Obviously, this is very, very clear that it depends. The meaning always changes based on their cultures. So different cultures have different meanings for the same word. So word relationship in all languages. So semantic cohesion is nothing but you have a relationship. We have already we told you. Suppose if I say aunt in English, it can be either your father's sister or your mother's sister. But in Telugu, we have separate word for mother's sister. We have another word for your father's sister, like that. So words relate with words and words relate with the signs, and it have a special value in the text. So obviously it has a special value. Words which are related with the signs, particularly what signs you are using, what sign you are using, and for example, if you show two fingers, or your middle finger in America, they will kill you off. They'll beat you like anything because it is an offense showing your middle finger, particularly to men. That is an offense. But here nobody bothers, and we don't use that also. So such type of words which are related with signs and based on that. So they are non-arbitrary expressions of their desire to understand and act upon their word. So Clary Cramston, according to her view, so what is it just you can understand is it completely depends on the culture, and this culture meaning completely differs from one culture to another culture based on their circumstances, based on their information transfer from one generation to another generation, how you perceive it, Once upon a time, a remarriage of widow was an offense. They never married. But if you go to at that time, particularly in 15th century, 14th century, it was not an offense or crime you in another culture, isn't it? So it depends and it changes along with the time also. Greetings and compliments. Again, it also based on our culture. For example, you take Arabian culture, they will hug each other. Of course, same gender, women to women, men to men. And the women are always completely covered in burqas, in veils. So it may appear very strange for us, but it is a very common practice for them. And so for example, French people, they can handshake. They can shake their hands in order to greet. And an American, just they may simply give a smile or a greeting orally, that is hi, hello, how are you, like that. So there is a different view, different habitual things, which based on their culture, values, and moral assumptions. So Arabians think that their women are not to be seen by other men. So obviously to open or reveal their face in front of other men is a haram. That is sin. Is the greatest sin. Just like that. So it is based on their culture. We have different greetings and compliments also. Okay, and we will go to next unit. Is it visible, the screen?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay. And in unit 9, it is relevance of culture. Please mute yourself. Mute yourself.
थोड़ी ना
Mute yourself.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. Unit 9, relevance of culture in communication. So how this culture influences communication. And there are some elements are given, that is redundancy. Redundancy is a repetition. Redundancy means just repetition of words. Okay. So what is the repetition of words or phrases? And an example is given in your textbook. So you just try to go through the poem and the repetition of words. Okay. Why are you repeating the word? Why are you repeating the word? Because to make it clear, in order to avoid misunderstanding, if you are repeating the word, that means you are trying to communicate. You are trying to communicate with clarity in order to reduce the miscommunication. That is redundancy. It is the repetition of the message in more than one way so that the message becomes clear and there is no scope for miscommunication. That is nothing but redundancy. The relationship between culture and communication. So culture influences communication, no doubt, and communication is shaped by deeply held cultural values and beliefs. Okay, so human nature. And see, if you go to any Andhra or Telugu culture, Telugu people, you go, a girl, a teenage girl, waving her hand to a boy. Suppose it is seen by her parents or his parents or by the elders, that becomes a big issue. It is human nature. Human nature. And based on their relationships, based on their community, values, moral values, social values. It depends on that particular human nature. So it also influences communication. But if you go to America or any other area, it is not a big issue for them. Even marriage, having a relationship without marriage is also allowed for them. But whereas it is strictly prohibited in our culture, in our society. So there are differences. And so culture definitely influences communication. So human nature, the relationship between humans and nature. So how you are having your relationship with the nature. You observe, so some people worship sun, some people worship moon, and some cultures worship nature. That means they take natural elements as deities and they will be giving respect, they will be paying their respect to the idols or the natural elements. Some people, they don't worship nature, they simply worship, religion is not that much serious for them. Okay, and so such type of attitudes, such type of situations, what you face, so they will be shaping the culture. They will be shaping the culture, attitudes, beliefs, and all that. So relationships between humans, relationships between humans. How you have a relationship between human beings within the family, with the families, between the families, and with the society. So based on this culture, obviously you will be communicated. Preferred forms of activity. What do you perform? What are your actions? What are your actions? So based on that, you communicate. For example, untouchability. Untouchability is practiced in India. It is not practiced in UK or maybe another one. And so what kind of activity you prefer? You follow, you observe traditions. So what are your preferred forms of activities? So they influence communication. So orientation of time. Orientation of time. So how you perceive time. That means how you take time. Is time is important for you? Or work done is important for you? Or there is a strict follow of time? For example, you say this is called Indian punctuality. We don't give that much importance to time, whereas the foreigners give very importance to time. And if it is a what do you say, meeting at 9 o'clock, they'll be sharp on 9 o'clock. But we take at 9, we take granted the delay, whatever, late joining, everything is allowed. We don't feel much bother about such type of things. And how you break your things, seasons. We have how many seasons in Telugu? We have in our culture, we have so many seasons. If you take American or UK, again, America has different seasons, and UK has, they have summer, spring, all these hot seasons. Even seasons are also different, but still we are having the same year. Names of the years change, months change. How you divide the month, they also change. We practice only 15 days, pakshamu, 15 days in Telugu calendar we have, but in English calendar you have only single month for 30 days. So all these orientation to how you take time, how you celebrate things, how you follow things, what are your lifestyle, I mean, what are your habits, what is your lifestyle, everything has its own importance. So next topic is kinesics, proxemics, okay, and how you have to communicate. What do you call this one? This is called kinesics. Kinesics is nothing but the study of body movements, bodily movements. How you stand, how you move your hands, okay, how whether you are laughing or smiling, whether you are pointing your finger. See, this person is extended his arms in first picture. This person extended his arms. That means he is inviting, right? He is inviting something. So this is, he's not talking anything, but whenever you observe this figure, so you will know the meaning. That means it is the study of bodily physical movements. So it is considered to be an intelligent way of communication. Some feelings you may cannot express, but express in words, but your gestures will say whether you are happy or sad. You may not say that no, I'm not I'm happy, but your face is not happy. Immediately that is visible, even though you say a word or not. So kinesics is a very perfect and very powerful way of communication. The study of the way in which certain body movements and gestures serve as a form of non-verbal communication. Okay, so it is a non-verbal communication, and the study is called kinesics. What do you mean by kinesics? Study of body movements. So proxemics.
Ma'am, kinesics means body positions during verbal communication.
Non-verbal communication.
Ma'am,
Kinesics
while
and emojis are same.
Emojis?
Kinosis and emojis are same, ma'am?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Emojis are non-verbal communication, part of a non-verbal communication. Kinesics is also a part of non-verbal communication, but whereas kinesics only deals with the body movements only.
Okay.
Only with the body
so,
movements.
ma'am, while talking, we can perform those body movements, or it means only without communicating anything, the body movements will be there.
Yeah. Suppose if you are giving a presentation, entire class you cannot stand like that, isn't it? You speak,
yes,
you show something, and again you will be giving some expression. Okay.
Yes.
So that is kinesics. How you stand, what is your tone of voice. So whether if you are confident, you will be watching them you will be maintaining eye contact with the student. That means you are very confident, you are grabbing their attention also. And if you are not,
so ma'am, kinesics can be performed while speaking also.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, fine, good. Proxemics. So this proxemics is nothing but the study of space. How you use it, to which extent you use it, and which space, which distance, how much distance makes you comfortable. All these things study with the proxemics. See this? So here, for example, you say intimate relation, both husband and wife or family members. So you have this intimate relationship. So don't consider this as only which is related with family. For example, the picture is given like that, and you have some personal space. Rather than your relationship, you also need some personal space. Whether you are comfortable at this place, or whether you are comfortable being intimate, or whether you are comfortable at being personal, that depends. That is completely your choice. And this next layer is social. How you maintain distance with your neighbors and public. For example, you take our house. House is intimate, and again you go, you perform your puja, you take your bath, you eat your, of course, again food is you will have with your family, right? Your personal study, prayer, or whatever you do, your job, that is personal. And at your workplace, you maintain your social distance, social relation, or else with your neighbors, that is social, and public in groups, I mean in the society directly. So, for example, you are going, you have gone to movie. Where do you sit? Where do you sit? And it completely depends on our physical and as well as our mental attitude. For example, I have an eyesight. I cannot see. If I have a far sight and a near sight, I may prefer the first row, or I may prefer the middle row, or maybe or the last row. So that you don't want to be seen by anybody, you go and sit in the last row, or else maybe in the first row, so that nobody can observe you. And based on your ability to hear, to accept the sounds and all that, right? So all these things to communicate and to receive the information, or else to pass on the information. So this study is called proxemics. Okay. So based on the context, whether you are giving any performance, yeah, which distance you have to maintain, whether you are talking to a friend, which area, it comes again intimate or maybe personal, or maybe you are talking to somebody, a stranger, a stranger, that is again, it will come into social sphere. So which distance you have to maintain, and what language you have to maintain, which vocabulary, which style, whether you have to take the polite form of thing, formal or informal way of communication, it also comes into consideration. So this is called proxemics. And again, we have here physical appearance. Obviously, physical appearance is very, very important, because based on your dress maintenance, where the way you comb your hair, hairstyle, and bodily movements, and what dress you have wear, and whether it is formal or informal, based on the situation. You cannot go to a marriage function by wearing a suit and all that. I mean, ladies, and you cannot attend that function. Okay. So that is called a physical appearance. So how you prepare yourself for based on the situation. You have been to an interview. You cannot wear a pattu saree, all the jewelry, and you don't go and you cannot present yourself in front of the interviewer. I am ready, right? So there should be so neatly draped saree, preferably cotton, preferably light colors, and very less jewelry, and a very neat hair comb, something. Okay, so attire, maintaining an attire, performance, it also gives you credits. It also gives an information to the interviewer what kind of person you are. So based on your appearance, how you make yourself, it obviously gives 60% of information to the interviewer what kind of a person you are. So it can be divided into two categories. Those aspects are under voluntary control, and another one is which is not voluntary. So what is voluntary? You can control your clothing. You can control your bodily gestures, and your hair color, your skin color, and all that. All these things you cannot maintain, isn't it? We don't get them. Only thing is which are in your control. How you comb your hair, what dress you wear, and what kind of attitude you have. All these things will give us an impression. So physical appearance is also important in communication. In communication, definitely. How you prepare yourself for an interview, how you prepare yourself for a marriage, how you prepare yourself for a religious practices, how you prepare for a funeral. You cannot dress up yourself neatly wearing so much of jewelry, and you cannot attend a funeral. If a person is deceased, a person is dead, and you cannot dress up yourself like a high fashionable person, and you cannot go attend a funeral. So this is a cultural implications are there, and you definitely all human beings follows, and it should be apt to the situation. So appearance can indicate our profession, and it shows your nature, interest, and your taste. It can also point out our religious and cultural values. So that's why that physical appearance is important. And next comes to high and low context cultures. So culture has a big impact on how direct we are in our use of language, how much we rely on other non-verbal verbal ways to communicate. High context cues such as time, place, relationship, and situation to both interpret meaning and send subtle messages. Low context uses very direct language and relies less on situational factors to communicate. For example, take America. They don't drag on the speech. They simply say on our face, do that or do this. And it is very simple. It is very subtle, very small, to the point, and they will not be, they don't beat around the bush. They'll directly come to the point. But some cultures, it is not like that. We will see examples also. So how culture impacts communication, and you have high context and low context. So high context is indirect, implicit, subtle, layered, and nuanced. So low context culture, concise, straightforward, explicit, simple, and clear. Okay, I just want to give you an example. I have read this in Reader's Digest magazine. So a queen is writing a letter to, not a letter, she is sending a message to her husband. So what is that? Now, husband is sending a message to wife. So the king, he is king. So his name first, king of, Duke of Manchester. And he has titles, a king always have titles. And all the titles he has mentioned. And the message goes like this. Would you come for tea? What is the message? Would you come for tea? And again, yours sincerely, your partner, your so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And that is the ending of the matter. And there is, what is the text important here is what is the message actually. And all these titles, even the wife also knows. Wife also knows that her husband is a king and he is the duke and he is so military head and all that. All that designations and titles, wife also knows. And what is the message? Would you come for a tea? So would you like to join for a tea? And now the wife has to give a reply. And again, she takes a paper and she is addressing herself. What is this? What is this? Her name, Duchess of that area, and that particular titles she has. And again, finally, she is the wife of that person. Okay. And now, who is that person again? She cannot simply say, yeah, my husband. It is not simply say my husband. And again, the same titles which he has mentioned, again, the list of the titles come. And so what is the answer? Headache. Okay. She cannot join for tea. And again, all the titles. So this is high context culture. It is not direct. It is very implicit. It is very, even to convey such a simple things also, they cannot talk directly. So this is an example of high context cultures. So it is again based on, not only for royals, it is based on the culture, based on the area. So low context is, you can see US, Netherlands, Australia, Canada, Germany, Finland, Denmark, Poland, and obviously to some Brazil. So this is low context. That means they talk directly. They don't know this formal things and all that. Information, just passing on information is enough for them. But whereas these cultures, this is Italy, Singapore, Mexico, France, Peru, Russia, particularly India, Iran, Kenya, all these the things, they have high context. They cannot talk directly. And suppose a maid cannot talk to the master of the house. So it is a taboo. It is a taboo. A common man cannot come and cannot enter into your house. This is also a taboo. They cannot maintain. And so they should follow some hierarchy. Okay, so this is high context. And directly talking is low context. So low context is that good communication, precise, simple and clear. Messages are expressed and understood at face value. Repetition is appreciated if it helps clarify the communication. And high context is good communication is sophisticated, nuanced and layered, and messages are both spoken and read between the lines. Read between the lines is it is not direct. We have to understand. And again, understanding takes another problem. Obviously, it depends on at individual levels. So monochronic and polychronic time. So what is monochronic time is culture based on the monochronic is one thing at a time. They will do one thing at a time. Then only they will do another one. Polychronic, poly means many. That is, they will do multiple activities at one time. Rigid approach to time, flexible approach. Based on the flexibility, they will take the work. And the strict agenda and no strict agenda. Focus on task and focus on relationship. So these are
Ma'am, in which context that monochronic and polychronic will come under? Low context or high context?
No. Next one. This is next topic. Chronic means time. Time. Notion of time. It comes under, in your book, it is given as it is monochronic and time. So it is something which is related with the time. How much importance you are giving to time, how you arrange time. So here we come to cross-cultural barriers. Cross-cultural barriers are, see this, if a message is spoken, there is a problem in understanding of receiving or receiving. What are the things? So please mute yourself. Who is that? A child is crying. Cultural barriers. So these cultural barriers based on age, based on the age and education, gender, social status, economic position, cultural background, temperament, health, beauty, popularity, religion, all these things affects understanding of message. So all these are termed as cultural barriers. So when a message is sent, how you have to take, that is based, we have some barriers and they are categorized like the speech ability. For example, if our language is not same, we cannot understand. The people who knew very less English cannot understand. People who are coming from rural background, they don't understand. And if a father is speaking, simply we cannot understand because their accent, pronunciation and the cultural context and the examples they give is entirely different from our community. So we cannot understand. Such type of gender differences are also. And if you are talking about some kind of things, for example, you are talking about the health of a lady and the doctor is trying to explain the situation, health situation, men cannot understand because their physiological structures are different from the women. So they don't understand what exactly it is happening. So it is a gender difference. And the old people or the younger people cannot understand what we are talking or communicating because they don't have that knowledge of that particular area. So such type of differences are there. They are called cultural barriers. So example, when the Japanese say yes, they mean yes, I am listening. The Americans may take it to mean yes, I agree. If you say yes, that means we also think that yes, I agree. But in Japanese culture, they say that yes means I am listening. It is not agreeing, I am listening. That means it is not acceptance, just listening. That's it. So formal approach towards their colleagues and referring to nearly everyone by their first names. For example, you take, if you have to address, yes, Mr. Paul, and yes, Mr. And their surnames and half of the name they will be calling. Very formal. They're very formal in addressing their colleagues. But it is not. We think that they are our brothers or sisters, maybe cousins. And so we treat them in such a way. So, and for example, you take Israel, people speak very louder. And in our cultures, that kind of shouting and talking with a high voice is not accepted as a good norm. So cross-cultural communication guidelines. So in order to reduce, in order to avoid this cross-cultural communication, what you have to follow. So do not make assumptions. That means don't assume, don't imagine. Be adaptable. That means don't be rigid. No, I cannot take it, I cannot read it, or I cannot do that. It is not. Try to be adaptable so that you can learn other people's culture. Avoid discussing sensitive topics. So how you take things may not be same with the other culture. We don't know exactly how to talk about. For example, in our culture, in our situation, talking about marriage and after marriage life with children is prohibited. We don't discuss such things until they come to a certain age or maybe they are married. But in the but in US or some other cultures, even in India, some tribes also, they will be talking directly about everything. So we don't know what is the other culture is taking. So don't, it is better to don't discuss sensitive topics. Be careful when using humor. So our humor may be you cannot say they may take it in a funny way or not. So don't use humor. Maintain personal contact. Maintain personal contact is something you try to maintain your space. Don't mingle with too much. You should have that privacy. You should give that privacy also. So listen actively. So it is not passive listening. Every time you should be careful what the other person is trying to say. Otherwise, you cannot you cannot listen. You cannot understand. Use visual aids. So obviously, if you use any visual aids, you can reduce the miscommunication, because they will be watching, they understand what you're trying to say, because pronunciation may different. Yes.
In cultural barriers of effective communication, under that, ma'am, some cognitive constraint, behavior constraint, and emotional constraint are also given.
Yeah.
What does they mean, ma'am?
Emotional is nothing but the feelings. Okay. For example, if I say, emotional is, suppose if you say a person is dead, the way you react may be different from the other person. How they react, isn't it? It is completely emotional. Yeah. So cognitive is thinking. Cognitive is nothing but thinking. So these are the barriers. I have given this picture.
Yes.
Yeah. These are all the things. Cognitive is just about the thinking, understanding. So 10 strategies.
And behavior constraint means?
Behavioral constraint is how you behave with others. For example, if I take a girl student and a boy student, the relationship between them, in some culture, if they both of them are talking, it is a taboo. But in some culture, it is acceptable, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that is behavioral. So 10 strategies for effective cross-cultural communication. So this is again very easy, and there is not much importance is given in your book also. You can understand very clearly. Take a snapshot photo out of it. So take a photo of this. So 10 strategies, it is not exactly 10. We can say ask questions to get clarification. Distinguish perspectives. Perspective is idea. The way you see, the way you understand is perception. So our view is entirely different from their view. So in order to avoid cross-cultural, obviously you are talking with an American. Now you are an Indian. Obviously there is no match. There is no match. What they think is entirely different from us. So build self-awareness. For example, so an attack was there on a woman, on a lady. Now an American activist is talking and an Indian social activist is talking. So they cannot mingle. They cannot have, they are unable to talk on a same concept in a similar way. They see that incident in a different perspective. Okay. And what we think is a different perspective. What we think is a different perspective. So here, for example, not now, some literature things are there. Look back in anger and Doll's House. Doll's House is there, for example, text. And in that, when husband slaps the wife, immediately the wife thinks and she leaves the house, leaving the house. because the wife is doing many things for the sake of her husband, and finally the guilt has to be taken by the wife. So she was devastated, she was frustrated, and she left the house. And in India, even though many wives are facing the same conditions, at the in the 16th century scenario background, they cannot even imagine leaving the house. Even though the husband beats, the mother-in-law beats, and whatever the harassment is there in the house, they cannot leave the husband, because our society, our culture, our beliefs never allowed women to do that. But now, slowly, perceptions and cultural values are slowly, they are changing. So in order to understand, to judge, to understand, we have to see, compare, and try to understand their idea, their conditions also. So build self-awareness. Self-awareness, you should be available. You should have some information always about that. Recognize the complexity. Complexity is difficulty. Avoid stereotyping. Stereotyping is the same kind of old way of thinking and using. So respect differences. So don't think that I am right and always the others are wrong. Others' cultural opinions are wrong. It is not. They do have a separate reason. They do have a common, they do have some background or support for every belief or every culture. So we have to learn that we should learn to respect others, and listen actively, be honest, and be flexible. Flexible is the ability to change, and think twice. So it is not just one-time decision, one-time idea. So you have to think twice. Okay, and you have to ask questions, because you are trying to make that clarification. So an anthropologist, here is just an example. I think I can take just 2 minutes more. Okay, so there is some people, they went to some anthropologist group. Anthropology, study of human race, how culture evolved, and how this language has developed. They study the entire culture and civilization. So a group of members, they went to a tribe in some Nigeria or somewhere. Okay, and they were working on it. And so the at that particular place, because of the high temperatures, usually immediately they were having the burnings, fire. Okay, catching off easily. Their trees, their houses, and their clothes even also, they easily catch up fire because of the conditions, weather conditions. So these people were trying to educate them. Okay, so they have shown some sand, they have shown some water. So whenever there is a catching of a fire, and they were giving that demonstration, how you have to stop the fire, how you have to extinguish the fire. So put some water on it, or else put some sand on it, or mud on it. And so they were giving that demo. And so they have learned very quickly, to the surprise of this anthropologist group. And so they were working continuously. And so the anthropologist, that scientist felt very tired. And so he wants to take some smoke. So he immediately, he has lit his cigarette. And now the cigarette is burning. The cigarette is burning, and he is smoking. He started his smoking. So now recently these people has learned how to extinguish the fire, how to stop the fire. So now they brought some mud, they brought some sand, and they have thrown that sand onto the face of that scientist. Okay, so they thought it is also a fire, isn't it? So for them it is not a smoking, because they don't know what is smoking. They didn't know what is this smoking and cigar, whatever. So they were trying to extinguish that fire. So because they don't know what is this cigarette, so they were trying to do it. So it is a cultural disparity, cultural ignorance. So you don't know what is the idea and what is the reason behind that particular tradition, belief, custom, whatever. So in order to reduce this type of miscommunication, so you have to equip yourself with the information, awareness, and readiness, everything, with all these things. Okay, thank you. And time is 15:38. I think we crossed the time. Okay, thank you. And if you got any doubts, we will be taking the questions or doubts in next class. Is that okay?
Excuse me,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, is there any WhatsApp group, ma'am, which can we chat with you?
No, ma. There is
Okay,
no
ma'am.
WhatsApp group. There is no.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay. Friends, next any other class?